never really seen desperate hard times. You know,
Exactly.
we've lived through the good times. And as long as there's bread on the shelf and Pepsi in the refrigerator and a few dollars in your pocket and the TV's on, you know, I guess everyone's happy. But what we see coming on the horizon from the Barack Obama administration and his handlers that actually control the American government and where they're facilitating taking us, it's high time people recognize that it's time to take to the streets and take this country back before it's too late. We need to start our own black regiment going out. All right. We're coming up on a break. We're going to be joined with Virginia Fox, Congresswoman, 5th District, North Carolina, here shortly. You're listening to The Real News with Farron and Brian. And we're back on the Real News Radio, Farron and Brian, and we're going to go ahead and continue with a little bit of news. We're waiting to be joined with Congresswoman Virginia Fox. This was reported this week by CNET. Obama administration, the cap and trade could cost families up to $1,761 a year. Of course, you know, Barack Obama said that his cap and trade bill would double most people's electrical bill. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to have here in the midst of a nice depression? But the Obama administration has privately concluded that a cap-and-trade law would cost American taxpayers up to $200 billion a year, the equivalent of hiking personal income taxes by about 15%. That's what we need, 15% tax hike. A previous unreleased analysis prepared by the U.S. Department of Treasury says the total in new taxes would be between $100 billion and $200 billion a year. At the upper end of the administration's estimate, the cost per American household would be an extra $1,761 a year. So here, while the American people are struggling, as we've said so many times, I know there's people out there that get tired of me saying this. All the jobs have been sent out of the country. There's no manufacturing base here in America. It's evaporating as we speak. No factories ever being built. This is what our administration comes out with. Let's have a cap and trade bill and raise taxes on the American people $200 billion.
So between federal, state, local taxes, we're up to almost 50%, around there approximately. This is before, folks, cap and trade, before health care. Add that to it. What is it going to be? 70%? 80%?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be such a socialistic country that you don't even get a paycheck. You know, you just have an allotment. You can go and get this bread and this milk. You've got health care. Your taxes are all paid on the energy you used. I mean, we are marching now toward the death knell of capitalism. And we were discussing it just briefly last night. It's just it goes along with this. But you know why there's no talk radio for the liberal talk radio? Because they would have to come on and espouse, well, it's a good thing we're going to pass that cap and trade. You know, the households have all that extra money. They need to get rid of that $1,761 extra dollars they've got. No one would fund that. They wouldn't advertise. They wouldn't listen. That's why there's a lot of conservative or patriot talk radio, but there's no real liberal extreme fringe like that. I guess the opposite spectrum, like if Barack Obama or who's another extreme liberal, I wanted to say Kennedy, but he's not with us anymore, was doing a talk radio broadcast.
George Soros.
Yeah, someone like that, you know, the opposite of Hannity, Limbaugh type spectrum of radio. But this is the kind of thing, this is the best they can do for the American people, is to come up with legislation like this. And unless there's a real backlash by the American people, we know that our representatives don't represent we the people. Obviously, you know, the bailouts and the other things that they've passed, the hate crimes bill, should make that painfully obvious to anyone.
Like you said, what are they going to talk about? Well, there's babies to be killed, there's guns to be collected. I mean,
yeah, we need to make sure that partial birth abortion gets well funded and passes, and we need to keep that going. And
there's people that don't want to work that need your money, so
expand welfare, expand welfare, so that more people can not work, so the few that do work can support these. That's the kind of agenda they would have. I mean. Where we're at here, it's just unbelievable. Now, we covered this just slightly last night. The World Health Organization has come out now and said that the pandemic flu vaccine production to fall short. We covered this before. We've said this for months. What will they do? They will come out and say that there's a limited supply of the flu shot to induce all the American sheep people to run out. Like you said last night, there's a sale, but it's limited quantities. You've got to rush out and get it.
Hurry.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. And that's exactly what they're doing. And this article goes on to say that, and it's Associated Press, the World Health Organization says that in theory, all the world's 6.3 billion people should receive at least one dose of the vaccine against the pandemic strain of H1N1, also known as swine flu. So they're admitting that their true goal would be, if they could have their way, would be to inoculate the whole world's population against this mild flu that is causing very few deaths and seems to be something similar to a brief cold.
And I hate to sound like a broken record here. I've reported this several times this week, but it's for our Saturday listeners. It's extraordinarily important information how the CDC mixes H1N1 and H5N1 viruses in tests. So the CDC comes out here and says that they're launching experiments at their laboratories infecting ferrets with both the H1N1 virus and the H5N1. Of course, the H1N1 is the swine flu we're all hearing about right now. It's very transmissible. That's its key. It's its primary component, how easily it is to transmit between people. And then we take the H5N1, the avian flu, which we heard about several years ago, which of course most people have already forgotten. Extremely lethal virus, although it's very difficult to transmit between people. Now you're taking both of these, putting them in ferrets and hoping they meld together, so you'll have the best of both worlds. You'll have this lethal H5N1 component, and you'll have the extraordinarily transmissible H1N1 component. So, I mean, we're building a extraordinarily deadly bioweapon here. The CDC comes right out and says this. This is the Wall Street Journal. Unbelievable.
And all we have to do is have a ferret escape, and we can have a world pandemic of a true deadly nature on our hands, and it makes you wonder why they're involved in this mad scientist, Frankensteinish type experiments, but that's what they do. So it's the Center for Disease Control, not the Center for Disease Eradication. They're controlling it, they're manipulating it, they're playing with it, and we're going to be coming up on a break shortly, and if we're not joined by Virginia Fox, we're going to go into how the race card has been played by the esteemed former President Jimmy Carter. If you dare to criticize the administration, if you don't sit back and just take it like the peasant they want you to be, and you dare to criticize President Barack Obama, then you are obviously a racist and probably in need of a long-term stay at a mental institution. Here in America, that's where we're at today. If you dare to question anything, then you're probably some kind of a psychotic, mentally deranged, insane lunatic.
And as I've reported before, this has happened throughout history, folks. I mean, Hitler, Stalin, the Chinese. If you're a political dissident speaking out, all of a sudden, guess what? You're in a mental institution.
Yeah. I mean, this has happened before. You said China, I think, is still doing this practice today. There were some reports on that in the last week or two. But, we're going to go into that if we're not joined by Virginia Fox. And after that, we'll go ahead and open up the phone lines this hour and maybe see if we'll get some phone calls. Because next hour, as soon as we come back on next hour, we are going to play the tape of John McCain in its entirety. It's about 20 minutes. It's with Dr. Gene Schroeder. I think everyone will really enjoy this. This is going to be our guest a week from today, Dr. Gene Schroeder. And then the week after that, we've got Rodney Miller. We're going to wrap up our Constitution, A Search for the Truth, and you can search for the truth yourself. We're not telling you what to believe. You can look into it. We strongly urge that you do your own research. That is what all Americans need to do at this point, is to look into it for themselves to see what they believe as far as the truth concerning our government and the manipulators that obviously are behind the scenes. But Jimmy Carter pulled out the race card. He got a lot of press. He's been criticized by the left, the right, and everyone in between. But this is what the media wants to facilitate, is where we dare not to open our mouth and we just sit back, grin, and take whatever comes from Washington, because otherwise you're labeled a racist.
It's always divide and conquer. I mean, it's always been their strategy, and that's what they keep using because it works, folks. And even if it doesn't work for the masses, at least the diehard Barack Obama supporters will say, yeah, they're racist.
Yeah, and I mean, you've seen that at having these local Tea Party events. They're so quick to jump to that conclusion because that's the only card they've got to play.